Hello. Just getting started, so I'll give people a few minutes to join. Okay, I'm testing the chat to see if that would work. Hi, Rebecca. How are you? Just going to give people a few minutes to join. Sorry the time got changed a few times for this one, but I'm here now. All right, I'll give everyone a few minutes to join, and I put a test comment in the chat and I can see it, but if someone else could drop a comment in the chat, just that way I can ensure I can see other people's, that would be great. Okay, I can't see any, but hopefully it's working. Just gonna give people a couple more minutes and then I'll get started. And I'll pull this up on my computer too. Okay, I can't even see comments on my computer. Can't even see the one I added. That does not sound good. Okay, I can see comments on the computer at least, so thank you for those that are joining. I'll just get started and check on the computer periodically. So just a little bit about today. We're going to be talking about chart patterns. So we've talked a lot about the planets, the houses, the signs, how they relate to each other, and this is just going to be kind of the general flavor of what your chart looks like in terms of how things are laid out. So when you first see a chart, and this can be your own or someone else's chart, kind of the pattern of things is what you'll notice first. And you know, there's no right or wrong way in terms of like what you see in a chart and how you want to navigate that. But everyone will have their own way to start. So one way I would recommend is like just to kind of look at the sort of what the picture looks like, right? And then you can start getting into the sun sign and all the planets and everything. So one thing to notice first is does this person have a day or a nighttime chart? And what that means is, was this person born at night or were they born during the daytime? So you'll see on your chart a few different lines. So again, sorry, this will be in reverse. But you'll see like the line up on the top and you'll see the line here, right? So this is the horizon line, the one that goes left to right. And if they were born in the daytime, their sun is going to be on the top, right? Because the horizon is here. So if you're in the daytime, the sun will be, you know, up when it's daytime. And then when it's nighttime, the sun is on the other side of the earth. And so down here, you'll see a sun sign on the lower half of the chart for people who are born at night. So that's one thing that is really prominent, and it's hopefully something that you know if you know your time of birth, you know if it was night or daytime. And just a little bit about that. I mean, people who are born in the day, they're going to be just kind of generally more outgoing, more expressive, extroverted, and they should be maybe a little bit more connected to their sun sign. Your sun sign, in my opinion, I think most astrologers' opinions, is that that is the true aspect of you. It should be the most important. There are other lines of thought, you know, do what feels right for you, but generally the sun sign is going to be like the most critical piece. So for those born at night, you may feel a little bit more connected to your moon sign, but that doesn't mean that you don't feel connected to your sun sign. Like this is just a bit more of your moon sign, whereas the sun would be just a bit more towards your sun. So I personally am an Aries sun sign, and I was born at night. I'm still very connected to being an Aries, but I do also connect deeply to my moon sign, which is Pisces. So just an example of my personal life, right? And so at night, people can tend to be a little bit more reserved, emotional, receptive, and intuitive. So that's just kind of a general flavor of night and dark. And if you think about this as well, you're gonna like think about how your signs and like all the planets in those aspects, they have like a little bit of a different feel, whether it's a day or a nighttime. And so as you study and work more with astrology, you'll start to understand that. It's a little bit more advanced. It doesn't completely change the meaning or anything. It just will have a slightly different flavor. It's like putting topping on your ice cream. It's still the same flavor of ice cream, but it adds, like, if you put chocolate syrup, it has a little bit different flavor. Okay, so you'll see again on the chart, you have the AC and the DC line. And this image doesn't have that, but you'll see on your chart, it should say like AC and then DC, right? And that is your ascendant and your descendant line. And we talked about that. That's the horizon time. So the left side is the sun rising in the east. Remember, it is backwards than kind of how you would look at a compass. So the left side is the east, and that is where your rising sign sits. Sun rises on the east, and your rising sign is there. The first house is the mask that we wear, especially in childhood, and what we tend to fall back on. So then on the other side is the seventh house, and that's the sunset. It's the farthest away point, and that's how we handle our relationships. It's the flavor of who we are with our spouses and partners, and also your very close friendships, like your best friend, and then also like legal and business negotiations. So things that you're really, really close to. The IC and the MC line, that's gonna be the one that is up and down. And most charts, it is actually a little bit angled, and that's because of the Earth's axis. But in this drawing, it's not, so I apologize. Okay, and that's, I forget exactly what the I and the M stand for, but it's in Latin, okay? And so the IC is the bottom of the sky, so that's the bottom piece, and then the MC is the top of the sky. And I think it might be Midhaven, but I think it's actually something else in Latin, so you can look that up if you want. And this highlights what the brightest and the darkest points of you are. So up at the top, the IC is going to be, or sorry, the MC is going to be your most outer self. So that's like who you are as you're projected out to yourself. And it's kind of like this, how you play a part in society with authorities, role models, and how people see you in like a public context rather than maybe like your close friendships one-on-one. And then your the IC, which is the dark side, right? That is going to be more with your relationship to your subconscious conditioning, your cultural lineage, tradition, and roots. So this is the past of your family background and your ancestry. It's the private home base you create for yourself, your deeply rooted emotions and patterns that give you security, how you feel safe and protected to nurture yourself and others, and your place in the world and in yourself, where you can find psychological integration. So we're just reading that word for word because I feel like it was written really well. But that is kind of like the lower side. And you can also think of this kind of as like seen and unseen, actually, which is cool, I think, with our group name. Okay, let me check the comments. Hello, hello. Hey, Callie. Okay, perfect. No worries. You didn't miss anything in the first couple minutes, so. Okay, let me find my place. So as you're looking at the chart, you'll also kind of take a look at the quadrants. And the quadrants are basically the combo of all of that, right? So here is this little handy chart. And I think this one I actually got off of Wikipedia, if I remember correctly. And I can try to find these and send them. I should have saved them. But basically the bottom quadrant, which is where the, I don't know if you can see this. Okay. On the east, right? So it's going to be down here, houses 1, 2, and 3. That's your personal identity. And then when you look at houses 4, 5, and 6, that's your personal expression. Houses 7, 8, and 9 is your social identity. And then houses 10, 11, and 12 is your social expression. So this should make a lot of sense when you look at like what the houses are. Hopefully this is not really like revolutionary for you if you've been following along with the series. It should actually really make a lot of sense. Okay. So there's also some like karmic patterns within this too. So on the east side, which is on the left, it's a lifetime of sowing karma. So if you have a lot of planets on the left side, that would be this whole side, right? Not just this part, it's this whole side. Oops. Make sure it's all on the screen. So it'll be this whole side, this whole left side from the top down. So houses 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, and 3. If you have a lot of planets on this side, then it indicates that you're a type of person that is blazing your own trail and you're basically sowing your own karma. So that means you're like planting the seeds, right? You're putting the seeds there for the future, your future lives. You're kind of like, okay, I want to change my karmic pattern, or I want to really be trying to get this in the future lives. So maybe you're not going to have that much happen for you in this life. This could be like a longer term effect. So you're putting the seeds, you're learning things, you're like, things may come with more effort and challenge for you. And you're making your own opportunities, but you're not really necessarily reaping the benefits of that, if that makes sense. So if that, aligns for you and you have all your planets on the left side, that may make sense. On the west or the right side, this is going to be a lifetime of reaping karma. So this is where you've already done the work in your past lives, and now you're kind of like getting all of this together. So this is where you're basically like setting the stage for reaping the karma that's already been created. So you've already done that, and now you're able to get all the rewards. Like things come easily to you. The alignment, like you may not feel like you're really in control or even doing anything, but it just kind of all plays out. And you're basically like getting all of those things from your past lives, and it's coming together. Any questions about that so far? Check. Yeah, Wikipedia definitely does have a lot. Actually, even if you just type in stuff on Google, I feel like the AI tool is pretty good with astrology. And if you just type in Google, the AI bot will basically just kind of like list it out pretty good. Okay, so areas of lessons. So now we're going to flip to the other line, which is that horizon line going east and west. East and west. So this is the above the horizon, which is more seen, right? It's out in the public, it's the daytime. And this is going to be that you have more public facing lessons. So this is visible when people have more careers such as like an activist, a leader, celebrities, teachers, things like that. They could be like out in the open a lot more, and the public eye will see kind of what they're doing. It doesn't mean you have to be like a massive celebrity or something. This is just, you know, in your own community, like people see you and they see what happens to you a lot. So you have a really public facing experience that others see. On people that have all the planets on the below side is going to be more unseen. So this is a more introspective life with private lessons that are being learned. So you could still be very famous, right? But like have that, they just have a more private lifestyle. And their karma is more hidden to everyone. So that's just kind of a little bit of aspect on that. Okay? So when you see a chart, you can automatically start looking at those quadrants and kind of having a little bit of a sense as to what is going on. You can also, of course, like count how many signs are in each element. That's another really good one. And then, of course, looking to see if it's a daytime or a nighttime chart. So that's a really good way to just kind of get a little bit of sense right off the bat. Okay, so now we're going to go into the patterns. So these are the patterns, and hopefully you can see this. I'm gonna try to zoom in kind of close, and I know it will be backwards, but what you're looking at here is like each of these dots would be a planet. So this seesaw would have a whole bunch of planets together on like, you know, a couple of houses, and then none on the other sides, and then a bunch more down at the bottom. So it's kind of like a seesaw where it's flipped. So that's just an example of that. So I'm going to kind of go through them. They're actually not in order in my notes, but this is the picture that I have. Try to go through, trying to see that you can see. Sorry. And my printer kind of sucks. Needs new ink. But hopefully you can kind of get the gist. And I'll see if I can get this into the chat. Okay, so that's just kind of an idea, and I'll read them out, and you can Google this too, you'll find it. But there's, you know, all these various different patterns that you'll see, and they each have their own meaning too. So when you're looking again at astrology, is a lot of information to take in. So you sort of start pulling all of this information together to give a reading. And professional astrologers do not just like read a chart like they would do like a divination reading, right? Unless they are extremely skilled. And I actually have had a reading from someone like that, and I've never seen anyone else that could do that. It was pretty incredible, but most astrologers spend a couple of hours even doing all the research and getting all their notes and everything before they meet with you. It's a lot to take in, so they have to like look at all of those patterns and things like that, and then spend the 30 minutes or an hour or whatever with you. And that's oftentimes why astrology reads are a few $100s, because you're really using like, you know, 3 or 4 hours of their time versus like a tarot reading or something where they're really just pulling the cards right then and there and then connecting with you, okay? So you really want to look at all of this, and it's important as you're reading your own chart and you're reading for other people that you really do look at all of these aspects. And as you start to see like the same aspects over and over with that person, you know that that's a major theme within their life. Any questions on that so far? And then we'll get into what each of these patterns means. Okay. Let's see, where am I in my notes? So in general, when you think about the patterns, you're going to think about the concentration. So just like we were kind of talking about, if people have a whole lot of things happening in the same spot, that's probably important. The concentration and everything there is, you know, there's a lot happening there, and there's probably a lot happening there for a reason. Ones that are more like splayed out is a little bit more balanced. And that's not like to say someone is like unbalanced mentally, although maybe, but it's really just that, you know, their energy is more concentrated, and like a more balanced energy typically does flow better. And that's kind of, you know, a good thing, but also having a concentration can be a really good thing too. So you just want to really look at how that applies, okay? So a locomotive shape, I don't know if this is really useful or not, but I will try. That is the locomotive shape. And this is a pattern that's produced when all the planets are contained within 240 degrees. So remember, the circle is 360 degrees. So normally this includes 8 contiguous houses or signs. So you can have an empty sign in there, but basically it's all going to be within that 240 degrees. So a planet that rises clockwise following the empty space will significantly influence the life of the person in this pattern. So no matter what that is indicated by the sun sign, it will act as a locomotive of the natal chart. So think about a locomotive, right? Everything kind of all goes in line. And so as it's moving forward, it's driving the individual to achieve goals that are determined and with unrelenting effort, with an exceptional drive and funds of energy at their disposal. So think of what a locomotive is in the most basic sense. It's a train, it pulls, it has a very forceful energy. Once it's going, it's kind of hard to stop. So all of that should make a lot of sense for that locomotive shape. It's all kind of just following along. So this individual is typically driven to achievement and perceiving a lack to be filled or a problem to be solved as indicated by the empty signs in the house. So where they don't have anything in those houses, they kind of feel like they're missing something there, right? That's that lack. So sometimes people with this can feel a little bit lonely because they don't have that and they're kind of chasing after that space. And that helps them to kind of uncover like the truth of what they've been saying all along. So everything sort of follows suit from what they're wanting, which is they're chasing that empty spot. And that's just a little bit about that pattern. And again, this isn't the end all be all. It's just an aspect within all the rest of the readings. Okay. So the splay. So this one has this like threefold pattern. And that's what that looks like. So there's kind of these 3 areas, kind of like a Triskelly. Okay, so this is the splay. So this one is noteworthy because of the presence of at least 2, but usually 3 pairs. So I guess it can be 2, but generally 3. And the planets look kind of randomly distributed, but in a splay shape around the chart. And it's essentially a tripod pattern. Okay, forget what I said about the 2. It must have 3 separate segments with at least 1 empty sign between them. So another kind of special chart is something called a grand trine. And that means that like when you look at all the lines across it, it has like a very clear triangle shape because you'll see the lines drawn out. So you can look up that, you can just Google that if you wanted to see it, and you'll see like that grand triangle. So that is something that is also very much aligned to the splay shape. So the splay shape can indicate enormous talent and potential that needs deliberate attention to be developed into worthwhile skills. So they often are individualists with no desire for regimented or highly organized way of life, and they will seek to avoid being trapped in a routine. And this kind of makes sense when you think about the aspects of triangles and you think about the way that that would sit on a chart, right? Because they have these 3 really strong concentrations. They also have 3 really weak concentrations. So that makes a lot of sense, right? It has these strong areas and these kind of weak areas. And they have all this talent and potential that's there, but they also have to work really hard to balance that with the areas that are missing. So this part, you know, there can be difficulty with a lack of relevance between the different skill sets, and that person may not derive the full benefit of them. So this person needs to concentrate on really getting their act together. That is the verbiage in this. And again, that makes sense because you have these really strong gifts, but if you're not connecting the full circle, then you're not going to be very well-rounded. And even though you have a lot of gifts in those areas, like we still have to function in every single house. Every house is, critical for any person, right? We look at what those houses are. You have to have energy in all those things. And so you may not have like a natural energy there, so you really have to work at it. And hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let me check the comments again. Yes, Kelly, it is very complex, and it is a lot of knowledge and time for sure. Yeah, it's incredible to me, Rona, that people did this by hand. That's how they've been doing it for a very long time. And even like medicine and doctors and everything, like they would look at your chart often before like really doing anything else. I have never hand drawn my chart, and I think that would be like a really cool thing to do actually. But yes, very time consuming and very challenging, and you have to have like all this knowledge and everything to do it. So it's pretty incredible that we have computers and we can just like get that right away. Okay, so we've gone over locomotive and sleigh. And now we are going to go over the bowl. So here is a bowl. So it's kind of all on one half. Okay, so within the bowl, it can be, it's all located on one half, and it doesn't have to be like, on one of those lines. It can just be half. So 180 degrees or 6 signs in the zodiac. People with a bowl-shaped pattern tend to be highly focused, self-contained, and have strong core values. The individual will go in search of enterprises that are meaningful, fulfilling, and personally relevant. They have the greatest benefit for themselves and others at heart. The challenge of this bowl shape is to become conscious of and integrate the qualities of the opposing hemisphere. So that kind of makes sense, right? They have all of their energy on one side, and again, doesn't have to be up and down or left to right. It can be any, half side of that circle. So they're really balanced with half of the energy, and then the other energy they have to seek out. But kind of, they don't have those gaps, right? They have just this other side. They're a little bit more one-sided, but still kind of balanced on that one side, if that makes sense. Hopefully it makes sense. But that's the challenge, is that they have to learn a different side. So if you think about people in general, right? I'm sure you can think about people who, whatever qualities they have, they really can't see the perception of the other person. It's like, it's my way or the highway. My way makes sense. If you align with them, everything makes sense and is great. And then the other side is like, you can't really see why the other person has that perspective. And that's one of their major growing things. And we all have to do this stuff, right? But like, it's just a little bit more prevalent for them. Okay. So now we're going to look at the bucket shape. So this one's very similar. Make sure I have the right. Okay, yeah. So the bucket shape is very similar. Are you guys seeing that? Yeah. Has them all together, and then there's one on the opposite side. So basically they're all close together in one hemisphere. It doesn't have to be exactly 180. It's just going to be most of them together on one side. And then they have another planet. It's just one planet that is on the other side. And that is the handle of the bucket. So if you think about a bucket, it's a bowl and it has a handle. So it's just like a bowl shape, but it has a handle. And a person with a bucket-shaped chart pattern has the strong desire to be an active part of mainstream society. They want to feel that they belong. However, they often want society to discover their own unique talents rather than them trying to fit in. So they want to be more discovered. So they have this beacon of whatever that planet is kind of driving the force. So this person often directs their effort towards one single purpose, wanting to achieve a goal rather than act just for their own self-preservation. So the singleton planet at the handle of the bucket will strongly influence the behavior of the person. It will be more important in the person's life than all the other planets. And then the challenge is to channel that energy wisely. So if you think about that, right, the handle kind of controls the bucket. So just the most basic thing of a bucket, you pick up the bucket by the handle, you can fling it around or whatever, and it's still attached. It's just the handle. That's my personal pattern, is a bucket, and my handle is Pluto. So I work with the underworld a lot. It kind of aligns. I actually work with Hades and Persephone's. They're my main deities. I went that path without knowing about the bucket. So that's how it aligned for me. And I have to be very careful not to tap too hard into that side of myself. So that is, how I work with that energy personally. Okay. The seesaw. That is this one. So you have the planets on two sides. Did we do that one? Why am I forgetting? I wonder if my notes, let me check really quick. Oh no, we did the splay. I was getting confused. Okay, so the seesaw is like half and half. It's because I was talking about that at the beginning, I think. So again, that's the seesaw where you have all your planets kind of on one side with a gap, and then on the other side, and then another gap of relatively equidistant patterns. So this pattern is composed of planets that are grouped together in two opposing clusters, and where the two sections of the chart are on either side of the clusters with empty planets in at least 60 degrees. So they have to have at least two houses in between those gaps. So as the name, as the name suggests, this produces a person who behaves like a seesaw within their life, and it follows a pattern of two distinctly contrasting alternatives. So this can indicate considerable instability between the two clusters where oppositions predominate, as the native tends to express firstly on one side and then the other. This person can find it difficult to integrate these two sharply different parts of their life, which are often in competition with each other. So I can't even think of a word that is like appropriate to use for this one. So if you think of just like people that are really like, I don't even want to say it because this is like mental health kinds of things, but you think of people who are really on two sides of extremes of spectrums, right? And then they jump from one side to the other, and not to like bring in mental health or like diagnoses types of things. So I'm not going to say the word, but you could probably kind of get my drift. I just can't think of another word right now. So if you think about that type of thing where you go from like one extreme to the other, that is how the seesaw pattern would work. And this again is not about mental health, it's just about the personality type, right? So as you're going from, one pattern of being one way, then on the other side, you're going to go back to the pattern of the other way. Rapid cycling emotions. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. So it's like you really have two polar opposite sides of yourself, and you just tend to like jump from the other, whereas most people maybe glide from one side to the other. We all have different opposing narratives, right? But maybe your opposing narratives would be stronger within this type of pattern. So with that seesaw, you're going to be going back and forth. So the success with this pattern is that you actually can produce a more increased sophistication and polish within those two areas. So instead of being like instead of just kind of jumping back and forth, you actually will have two really strong ways of dealing with life situations. Kind of implies that you also have two really weak ones, but you know, they're on the opposite side. So hopefully that lets you kind of, you know, those strengths will bleed a little bit more into the other areas. Okay, and the last one is the splash. And that is this one. So the splash is like relatively randomized. There's not really much of a pattern. That's a very common one. And so for the splash, this one is, again, like a lack of a pattern, and it occurs when the planets are randomly distributed around the chart in a splash. So a true splash pattern should have at least 7 signs with houses in it. So if you have less than 7 signs with houses, then or 7 houses with signs in them, then you kind of have like something else. But if you have like every house with a planet or something going on in that, then you're gonna have like the splash. So this pattern has like the strongest diversification. So that's that really big balance, right? You kind of have energy everywhere. And that diversification is actually your number 1 asset, because you don't have that strong concentration of energy, you know, which is good, right? It's like you, the strong energy can be really good, but can also have its own challenges, where this, you don't have like a really strong powerhouse, but you have power everywhere, which is good, right? So when you have that, you oftentimes will have a universal and enriching outlook on life. You'll be eager to share your life and resources as universally as possible. And you're able to kind of just see where the greatest need is a lot better than somebody who has a different pattern, because then they're kind of always have this lens of like, okay, I'm looking at it through this pattern, and you're kind of stuck in that pattern a little bit more than somebody who doesn't have that pattern, because you're just kind of able to take it a little bit more of a bird's eye view and see it a little more clearly. So the danger on this is that you could scatter your energy way too much and just kind of be unproductive overall. So you have to, instead of like relying on your pattern to drive your focus, you actually have to drive your own focus internally. Hope that makes sense. That's kind of the, you know, the best, I would say overall. People say like the splash is really the best, because like you have the ability just to like, you know, work with energy a lot more balanced. But again, like everyone has different lives, right? Like if you're gonna be like a surgeon, I don't want you to be like really good at all kinds of medicine. I want you to be really good at the one thing you're doing in surgery. So that's just kind of like, you know, a real life example, I guess. So that is it for my notes. Kind of a short and sweet one today. Hopefully that makes sense. I will definitely drop these 2 patterns in here, or things that have like all the patterns. And if I can't find the exact ones, I will find something similar. And then these are the quadrants. So just a quick recap, as you're getting a chart, you'll want to look at like where most of the energy is, if it's sitting in which quadrants it's sitting in, what the pattern looks like, where the sun is it on the top or the bottom, so you can see if it's a daytime or a nighttime chart. And you can also count the elements, right? So you look at like, you know, how many planets are in like each zodiac sign, and they each have their own corresponding element. So that's another really good way to look at the balance. So if somebody is like all fire and air, I mean, that's like a very rapid type of fire producing energy. So that's something to think about. You know, if somebody is balanced across all of the elements, that is really good. You know, again, you have that whole balance. If they're really attuned with like water, for instance, they might be, if they have like a heavy water placement, they could have a lot more depth to emotion. So yeah, it's just kind of another, you know, you look at all of that, you look at the balance of all of that, and it gives you a good sense of the chart overall. So this is often like, this information personally is what I would look at from a chart at the beginning. But but I didn't want to bring it into the beginning of the series because I feel like you have to have kind of an understanding of the other stuff first. Any questions about this or anything that I've taught so far? I try to go back and watch or look for comments in all of the lives, but if you have questions really about anything so far, let me know, and I'm here and I will do my best to answer. It's weird, like some comments are popping up here and some are not, so Facebook is kind of crazy lately. Let me check on this side too. We call that going Kim in our house. I'm not sure which part that is, but I love that. Kelly, I'm so glad that you're learning so much. And I'm glad that the order is helping too. I definitely tried to put a lot of thought into it in terms of breaking it down. I'm glad it's making sense. All right. Well, I will go ahead and end it here. And if any questions come up in the future, you can always, drop them in here. And for everyone on the replay, please comment throughout. I will be sure and check them as well. And if anybody is needing something to comment on, drop down in the comments what your chart pattern is. I think that would be a really cool way to kind of connect with everybody and see, again, there's no like right or wrong, pattern here. So if I know I was saying like the best is the splay, that's just kind of a general term. But if you want to put like what your pattern is and how you feel about it, that would be really awesome. Or how you see it like within your life, like how it works for you or where you're struggling. I mean, that's a cool thing to do as well. So drop that in and we can all chat about it. All right. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.